Thank you for participating. Thank you for participating in our video teleconference meeting for the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District, our Environmental Justice Advisory Group. We are all participating virtually. In order to facilitate this meeting in the best way possible, please make sure that you have other electronic devices muted, especially that if there's some background on your end, that you're muted to avoid disruptions of the meeting. During the meeting, all public participants except for EJAG members will be placed on mute by the host. Public members will not be able to mute or unmute manually. They will have to raise their hand and ask for their participation during the public comment section. And only EJAG members and staff will be visible via Zoom. So with that, I welcome everyone and I will call the meeting to order and ask for roll call, please.
Ms. Martinez?
Here.
Dr. Baines? Mr. Freitas?
Here.
Ms. Gutiel?
Here.
Mr. Brazil? Ms. Vielma?
Here.
Mr. Helm?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Ms. Dean? Mr. Cunha? Mr. McLaughlin? Mr. Leba? Ms. Austin Tibbetts? Mr. O'Brien? Mr. Cryer?
Here.
Through the chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you.
Quorum. Sorry, we don't, we
That's
have
what I
to,
thought.
yeah, we need 8 to have a quorum.
I thought she counted 8. I'm showing 13 participants, 14 participants. Is that because it's counting all the
That is because of the staff members.
staff? Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, well, that's not good.
I do want to announce that Mr. O'Brien just joined.
So now we
Okay.
have quorum.
Okay, that's good.
Great. So before we move into the agenda, I would like to say that one of our members requested that we change the order of the agenda. So I was going to ask all the members to see if you agree to do that. However, Derek, I don't see Manuel Cunha joining us tonight. Do you think he still be able to join? Shall we change the order? That was his request.
I would suggest through the chair, if you are willing to do so, we keep the order the way it is now. If he comes into the meeting after wherever we are, we can jump to that subject at that time.
I have no problem with that. And just so that everybody is on the same page, the request was made by Mr. Cunha that we would move up in the agenda the review of our goals and objectives for calendar year 2022. But for now, we're going to maintain our agenda in the order that it is. And if he comes in, we'll make that change at that time. I hope that's okay with everybody. So with that, let's start first with the review and approval of the minutes for the June 23rd meeting.
Just sorry, Ms. Chair, just a point of clarification. We still are lacking quorum for the meeting. Both Mr. O'Brien and Mr. I apologize, Kirchel. They both represent it's the primary and alternate for the same position. And so you can only count them once. So as of right now, we're still one short of quorum. So we can still progress through the agenda, just any matters that would require action, we'd have to wait till hopefully we get quorum.
Including the item that I just referred to, correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, and then can you remind me, Morgan, if for the minutes, do we need to get a roll call of this, or the approval is just by consensus?
It can be, if there's no objection, you can just deem them complete or deem them approved. I believe though, Mr. Leba may be joining right now. So that would in fact give us quorum.
Thank you, Morgan. Keith, you have your
Yeah.
hand raised?
Yeah, point of order. I just curious, Morgan, maybe you could answer this is, if we start a meeting without quorum and then somebody comes in later on down the road, does that mean that we go back to quorum and we can alter everything and do whatever they want? Or how does that work? Do we have to start the meeting in a quorum, or how long does it have to go without a quorum before we get a quorum?
For EJAG, you can have the meeting without a quorum. You just can't conduct any business, like take actions on it. There are some other committees that you have to have a quorum to have the meeting, but for EJAG, we can have the meeting without a quorum present. If the members want to move forward with the meeting. I mean, but tonight, there's several informational items that we could go over while we wait. Did Mr. Leba, did he add? Okay, so we have everyone here now to have
I'm
quorum.
just curious. You didn't answer my question really. I'm curious, is that once you start a meeting without a quorum, and you roll down the road and you're into it for an hour, and then somebody comes in that creates a quorum, can you go back and start voting now on voting items?
Yes.
Yes, we
Can
just
do
wouldn't.
that? Okay.
Yes.
That's all I needed.
And we have done it that way in the past, according to what I recall.
Okay, thank you. My apologies, Chair. Thank you.
No, thank you. It's important to follow all procedures accordingly. So if you guys have already a chance to review the minutes from our June 23rd meeting, unless there are any objections, I would like to call for the approval, just consensus, and then move us on to, unless there's any comments or that you prefer for us to call roll.
I have a comment. I was there at the meeting, but it is registered as absent. I believe I did say here during the. roll
Excuse me,
call.
this is Ned Leba. Can you folks hear me?
We can net.
Okay, I've been trying to get into the Zoom here for 10 or 15 minutes. It says
Yeah.
my password is invalid, so I've sent several emails. Can someone help me with this?
Thank you. I experienced some problems too, so probably the staff members can help make sure that there are no members who have experienced
I
problems.
mean, I assume there's probably other people that are having the same
Yes.
difficulty joining in.
I agree.
Ned, you're not the only one. You're not the only one. It was pretty bad tonight, but I thought, don't they have a tech guy that's going to usually have there, an IT guy on staff?
Yeah, I can't see anything, and I was not even admitted.
Ned, the way that I was able to come in was that I copy the part that has like the meeting ID, that is the last part of the link. And then I went to the, Zoom, and I just say join a meeting and pasted that there, and that allowed me in. So
So you don't click like we normally do on the link.
Yeah, the link didn't work for me, so I had to do it that other way.
Okay.
So
Ned,
like
I had to
one-
do it a completely different way too, Ned. So it's not that one way works over the other. It just
Okay.
had a particular problem today.
Keith, come on. Let's go. Let's move on.
Okay, I'll try.
Okay,
Say.
sorry, Ned, that you're experiencing that problem. And can we please make sure to amend the minutes to reflect the attendance of Mr. O'Brien in the June 23rd meeting?
Yes.
Okay, just so that we are all on the same page, can we have a roll call just so that we are all following procedure?
Ms. Martinez,
Yes.
Dr. Baines, Mr. Freitas,
Yes.
Ms. Gutierrez,
Yes.
Mr. Brazil, Ms. Vilma,
Yes.
Mr. Helm,
Present.
Mr. Williams,
Here.
Ms. Dean, Mr. Cunha, Mr. McLaughlin, Mr. Leba,
I am here.
Ms. Austin Tibbetts, Mr. O'Brien,
Here,
Mr. Crier,
Here. Here.
through the chair, we have a quorum.
I'm sorry, this is Dr. Baines. I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, and I was not trying to establish a quorum. I was just asking for a vote to approve the minutes, but thank you. Now we reaffirm that we have a quorum. And unless there's any objections, we will consider approve the minutes of June 23rd with the amendment that Mr. Bryan was in attendance. Okay, can we go to see if we have anyone in the public that would like to make comments at this time?
We currently have no public attendees and no indication of public comment.
Thank you. Oh, Miss Annette, good. I hope that helped. Great. Well, I'll keep my comments brief. I just want to welcome everyone. I hope that you had an opportunity to review the amendments or the changes we did to the public health objective that we are considering adding. I'm not going to ask for your comments right now. We hope we can have a very rich discussion in a minute. And now that we have quorum, that we can adopt this and finally have an approved set of goals and objectives for the remaining of the year. And with that, I will ask Morgan or whomever in the staff will be presenting the APCO comments.
Yeah, just one quick one tonight. We're still have a current vacancy in the one of the two ethnic small business owner positions on EJAG. The current recruitment that we had open has expired. However, we've decided to extend it out through the end of next month to September 30th. We're still looking for additional interested parties so we can take them through the remainder of the process. So if you know anybody that fits the criteria and they may be interested in participating, by all means, let them know about that, and you can shoot them over our way and we can help them through the process and learn more about the position if they need some more information. So just wanted to make sure you all were aware of that.
Morgan, and this is not geographic based. It could be in any of the 8 counties, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, any reactions to that request? Hopefully we can all help identify some potential candidates. I would
you
want
have
to.
one.
Sorry?
Are there any ethnic requirements?
It does need to be an ethnic small business owner. There aren't any requirements beyond, for any particular ethnic groups beyond that.
Keith?
Is there an age limitation?
Not that I'm aware of, but that's a good question. I don't think there's any age limitation on the group. It would just have to be someone that, obviously is a business owner and operator. So to what extent that, may limit the age range.
May I suggest that, Morgan, that we all receive the application and maybe with some more clarification, just if you can double check if there's any age limits so that we can forward it to some potential applicants?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. O'Brien, do you have an additional question or comment?
I'm sorry, I did get my question answered. Although I don't know what ethnic means. Irish American is ethnic. Does that qualify, or?
I mean, they're looking for minority-owned businesses.
Businesses, yeah. I would say
Irish is about 20% of the population. Is that minority?
They have a list of minorities online, I believe, Richard, you could get access to.
and just to be clear, Morgan, may I add to my previous request that we have a definition or some resources so that we can forward and make sure that whomever we're inviting meets that criteria?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, our next agenda item is to receive an update on attainment plans and rules.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jessie Fierro, the Director of Air Quality Planning here at the district. In your packets is a 6-page summary of all active plan and regulatory items. I won't cover all of them today. I'll hit some highlights, but I'm happy to answer questions about any of them at the close of my update. Of key interest is our ozone plan for the 2015 8-hour ozone standard. We are calling this our 2022 ozone plan. The California Air Resources Board held a workshop on the state SIP strategy just a couple days ago on Tuesday, September 22nd. We had lots of representation from the San Joaquin Valley giving comments. So it's always good to see people get active in our processes, both at the regional level and at the state level. The California Air Resources Board will be considering approving the state SIP strategy at their SIP. Wait, I gave the wrong date. It was August. My goodness. What month is this? Sorry. It was August was the workshop, and then the hearing is in September. Those of you who were there know, it was in fact in August. Anyway, great representation from the public in the Valley, and the CARB will finalize their portion of the strategy in September, and their strategy becomes part of our plan. And so we expect to have workshops on the full ozone plan, which would include the state strategy, the local strategy, the science, and all the policy things that we need to do. That will be going to our board by the end of this year. We expect to have a workshop later on in this fall. On the rule development side of things, Rule 2201, our NSR rule, we held a public workshop on that on June 29th, and we expect to hold additional workshops in September. Governing board meeting for that one will probably be the end of the year. We are working on amending several rules for our leak detection and repair regulations. These are aimed to reduce emissions associated with oil and gas production. We held a workshop on this back in March, and we've still been reviewing a lot of analysis and a lot of activity at other agencies. We will have another workshop later on this fall, and we'll probably adopt this one by the end of the year as well. But in the near future, our petroleum refinery fence line monitoring rule, we already have a rule in place, and we are amending this rule. That will be going to our governing board at our September 15th board meeting. We posted the proposed version of this rule and posted our notice of the public hearing a couple weeks ago. So those are currently available on the district's webpage. So you can find that there and review it, and you can email us if you have any questions or comments on that one. And then the last one I'll cover this evening is Rule 4550, conservation management practices. We are in the process of looking at amendments to this program, specifically to address fallowed land. I expect this one to go to our board at the end of the calendar year as well. That concludes my update. I'm happy to take any questions. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerry. Any questions for Jerry? I just have a question. One of the rules that you mentioned was to reduce leaks and all that. How is that rule related to the methane rule that was approved by CARB a couple of years ago?
Part of what makes this regulation so challenging is that there is crossover and how different agencies regulate emissions coming from oil and gas production. The district has regulations, CARB and COGRA has regulations, and even EPA has a little bit of a role to play. Our rules don't specifically address methane. Our rules are targeted at volatile organic compounds.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because reviewing the methane rule, it was my understanding that a lot of the enforcement of that rule had gone through to the air district. So I wasn't sure like if that would, just even in the way you do the inspections, like you're there to do an inspection, but a VOC, but while also doing a methane potential leak inspection.
Yeah, so maybe I can clarify that a little bit. So as Jesse said, our our jurisdiction is criteria pollutants, and so as part of ozone planning and ozone reductions, we regulate volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and there's there's VOCs that come off of oil and gas operations, and so for 30 plus years we've regulated that. We have rules around that. Methane is a greenhouse gas. It falls under the climate change regulations that CARB is tasked with under state law, and so CARB then adopted a set of a rule, the COGR rule, that targets methane emissions from very similar equipment. And so there is some overlap, but the way that the state law reads is that it's for equipment that is not subject to the local district's rules. So the equipment that doesn't have any VOCs, it just has methane. That is then subject to the state rule, and we are under contract. CARB asked us when they adopted the rule to enforce the rule for them, and so we have a contract and agreement with CARB to enforce that rule. So as part of our normal inspection, when we go out and inspect these operations, we inspect both for our rules as well as for the state rule at the same time.
Yeah, and that was kind of the part of my question that, and and this is more about inspection and enforcement, that rulemaking that we're discussing, but I was just curious how the two, were brought together when inspections happen, especially because I understand methane is a greenhouse gas, but oftentimes when you have a leak for methane, that's an indicator that very likely you're going to have VOCs as well. So how you, combine the two. And I see Keith has his hand raised.
I just wanted to ask if the presenters and maybe the people talking, if everybody could just slow their speech down just a little bit, the speed of their speech. I think that I'm having some issues with hearing some of it because people are speaking pretty fast. So if you could just wouldn't mind to slow down just a little bit, that would be great. Thank you, Naomi.
Sure, thank you for that. I will also be mindful myself of that. Any additional questions or comments regarding the update on plans and rules? I don't see anyone raising their hands. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Moving on our agenda at this moment. So Derek, shall we move on with the order? I don't see Mr. Cunha joining. Is that okay? Great. So in a previous meeting, we have already approved the objectives that we had from previous years with minor edits, but then there was the ideal of adding an objective that was going to be focused on health, public health. I took a first stab at drafting that, and then a subgroup of us met earlier this week, and we together came with some edits to that version. That document you should have received yesterday. So if you did not, please raise your hand so we can try to send that to you, as we're speaking, so that we are all on the same page. And I would like to hear some discussion, some comments about your reactions to the proposed language. I hope that we could have some agreement so that we can take this to a vote tonight. So any initial discussion? Derek.
So I just wanted to make sure the one that they actually just sent it to me a minute ago, and I've opened it up. I'm looking at it right now. And unless I'm looking at it wrong, it looks like it was they were able to trim it down to one page. Is that correct? Oh, it is still 2 pages? Okay, I'm only getting the 1 page, but I already know what's on there. So I just would like the group to know, through the chair, the group to know that we went through this line by line, item by item, with Morgan's help, and made sure that we stayed 100% within the purview of the EJAG, that we stayed in an advisory capacity. We weren't telling the district what they could or couldn't do. Morgan helped us to make sure that everything was the way it needed to be. And then there was one item that the chair went back and had to work on a little bit, and she came back and got that done. So we've got a document now that will become with the vote of the group, item 11. It's very clean and it does fit within the purview of the group and it has met with the approval of the district. I just want everyone to know I'm standing behind it because it works.
Just for,
Thank you, Madam
sorry,
Chair.
Derek. Just for one point of clarification, I mean, I definitely was there. I don't know that the district has blessed it yet. I don't want to give that. I mean, we still have to consider there's still some things in there that we would need to look at and make sure that it conforms. You know, we talked about during the subcommittee, we'd have to take our attorney look at a couple of things. And so
My mistake. I thought we
yeah.
were good on the district side of it. Well, then I can say that we know that the district, we could approve it. The district would come back and make any slight changes they needed to make. So we would still be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. The process is that once we approve it, it goes to the APCO who has the final authority to approve it or suggest any changes. But I see several hands raised, so I'll go ladies first. I'll start with Dr. Baines.
Hi, I'm sorry. I have been in and out. It's been a busy time with COVID. Can you please provide me some context as to what the purpose is? I'm looking at it right now. I just don't understand what the need was, what we're looking for, or just because I missed the last meeting. So what was the context for this?
Yes. So I can start giving the context and then maybe Ned, I believe, was the one who recommended adding this objective. So as you know, Dr. Baines, as part of the mission of the Air District is to help ensure that the public health is protected from air contamination, air pollution. I don't have the exact language of the mission in front of me, but when we were approving the previous objectives, there was observation that it would be good to have an objective that completely focus on how can, as EJAG, we can help the Air District fulfill better that mission. And with that, that was the reasoning behind the action items that were developed and the goal that was proposed. So
this is creating what exactly? Is creating another member or committee?
Did you read the objective? The goal is to identify opportunities to incorporate health considerations into the decision-making processes of the Air District. So how would that happen? Through different action items. One would be to establish an ad hoc committee of sub-members of ourselves and getting input from other relevant experts that have that public health expertise. And that committee will do a literature review of all policies, approaches, and practices in California that could help us achieving that goal of incorporating health considerations into the decision-making processes of the Air District. It also includes or considers also working closely with, for instance, the health department, other entities that track health metrics to identify what things can be tracked better. And we know that that's going to be a challenging aspect, and you as a physician are more knowledgeable of this than me, but that we could start at a very minimum in identifying what those metrics are, and then those metrics will come back in the form of a report for us and to share with the other staff members and the board members of the Air District.
Okay, so this is creating a subcommittee to focus on public health implications for specifically the Central Valley.
Correct.
Okay, so can I add a suggestion that these members that get added to this are people actively working in the Central Valley?
Absolutely, that's a great recommendation.
Yes.
I don't see why that would not be possible.
Yeah, experts from the Central Valley that are actually seeing patients in the Central Valley and actually have experience with the health disparities in the Central Valley specifically.
Okay, I think we can take note of that, and unless you want to be more specific as of where, or if in any particular action item you want to include that language, or we can take try to do it ourselves.
I'm not sure where that would fit in. I'm just looking at this document for the first time. I can look at it and I can email you guys the recommendation specifically.
Through the chair, one point of clarification, and this was discussed at the subcommittee, so maybe it's good to talk about here as well, but this would be an ad hoc committee of EJAG. And so the people that make up the committee would be the members of EJAG, or a subgroup of the members of EJAG.
Thank you for that. That's what I was confused about. That makes sense now. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Baines and Morgan. I agree, but I think that if you see action item 3, Morgan, there was a consensus that mostly will be members of EJAG, and that for whatever vote of a document we would like to make, it will, be only for EJAG members. But however, we were also in action item 3 specifying that we might also add or request additional expertise from other scientists, experts, and community members. So I think that in that one, it might be important to add that recommendation that Dr. Baines just made, to say that it will be from either scientists, experts, community members from the Central Valley.
Are we allowed to do that as EJAG members? Are we allowed? Because EJAG members go through what I remember is a pretty thorough process of interviewing to be selected to be on the EJAG. Are we saying that we're going to add more like that? That's just, I don't know the purview of being able to do that specifically. Maybe.
Well, and that was one of the things that Morgan was saying, that he wasn't 100% sure if this would stay within our purview. We are not adding members to our group. We are just adding or requesting some expertise, how would I say it? Some help identifying health outcomes that are linked to air pollution and discussing strategies to reduce air pollution related to health disparities in the region, so that there would be a discussion where we could invite the external expertise. That doesn't mean that particular expert will become a member of EJAG.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I guess the question would be back to the governing room about the logistics, about being able to add on members to influence EJAG material that not be EJAG people themselves.
Yeah, and that was more because we were planning on having some sort of like workshop, or, I think that was the word we were using. So it would be like inviting someone to this workshop and doing that with them. You know what I mean? So we are putting that as an idea. Again, if it's within our purview, it's something that the air district, in particular, the APCO, will inform us if it's possible or not. But I hear your concern.
Yeah, so we did this on the commission, and the way we were able to do this is, so, I mean, if we keep it public, then members of the public are allowed to attend and give their advice, and we can keep it that way. But we will run into problems if we specifically recruit people to influence. We can invite people to give presentations from what
and that's probably it's the latter, what you just mentioned. If they're gonna, it's like inviting them to a panel, if you will.
I guess the question would be to the governing board room for the logistics around that. I don't see how that would be possible. I see having a public meeting and having public people comment. I just don't understand.
I mean, in my opinion, that has been done in other issues. The only difference is that, for example, a couple of times the air district has engaged in, creating symposiums or seminars or workshops, whatever you want to call it, on a specific topics, like, I remember several years ago, one on different methods of disposing ag waste, so if we don't want to do biomass, what else can we do? And it was a different set of experts that were invited. That was convened by the Air District. So we are an internal advisory body of the Air District, so I would imagine that will happen in the same way. But I hear your point and your concerns, and I would like, Morgan, can you give us some guidance? So what would be your recommendation here? Should we just continue the discussion and change the language with the recommendations that we have and then call for a vote, or what would you recommend?
Well, yeah, I think it'd be important to make sure all the members got their opportunity to speak to the issues, and if they had potential changes, we could look at that. I mean, the way I had read this is on that latter side of things as well, that I think there are times where EJAG will invite people to come and speak at either EJAG or in this as being proposed, perhaps in some kind of other convening that would be more focused on public health. And so it's not adding people to EJAG. It's not adding new people in an advisory capacity. It's more about, education, so that members of EJAG can form opinions and provide advice as part of their role on EJAG.
Thank you. Okay. Well, before
I think you got other comments here from people. The other hands raised.
Give me 1 second, Keith. Be patient.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that I understand and that I have given Dr. Baines all the space that she needs. So, Dr. Baines, with this clarification and your recommendation of making sure that these expertise that could be invited to this type of workshop, that is from people in the Valley, any other changes or recommendations you would like to make before I give the floor to Keith and Ned?
No, I appreciate that so very much for you following up with me. And yeah, I think I agree with what they were saying. As long as we make it clear that we're not adding members to EJAG, we are not creating any extra advisory. This is just a public meeting in which members will be invited to speak in a public capacity, then we are fine. And then we're not getting in trouble with the bylaws. Again, I would stress that we try to get, experts from the Central Valley specifically.
Thank you. Keith?
Okay, first of all, I want to say that you get to the point, make your point, and if you've had time to study the material outside of the meeting. Okay, number one, that's my suggestion. Number two, I have a real problem with this document. I have a real problem with the language that's in here. You're seeking to be redundant. It implies that the board and the staff of the Valley Air District is not doing their job, and that we need to add more people, more review, and more policy. And if you read this, you've got language in here that says strategies to reduce air pollution related to health disparities in the region. Well, I mean, that's the whole point of the EPA. We've already done that. This is redundant. You have language in here that says that you want to implement an enforcement of air pollution control laws, regulations, and policies. Well, that's what they're already doing. I mean, that's what the district does, and that's what the EPA does, and that's what Cal EPA does. That's their job. That's what they do. And as far as implementation of non-clinical settings, you want to say in one word, in one side, you say non-clinical settings, but then you go down and reference scientists, experts. You want to invite health experts and scientists to become and community members to identify outcomes that are linked to air pollution. I think that the district does a great job in developing those definitions, and I think they do great work at encompassing everything that's involved with the health of bad air in the valley. I think that was the whole purpose of them. I think that we're building a redundancy here, and I'd be really afraid to to sign on to this kind of a document that that has this defining language on here that creates more action rather than suggestion of policy changes or approaches. I think that's what bothers me the most. And another thing, if this does go through on the committees, on these ad hoc committees, we got to make sure that we have members that don't have conflicts of interest, like family members who are heavy polluters in the valley. I think there's a conflict of interest having somebody sit on one of these ad hoc committees and their family members are in the automotive industry or in the industries that are polluting the air. And I think that maybe some of those people should be wise to probably recuse themselves from being on these committees. So I think that should be something that should be part of it. It seemed like to me that you're trying to approach this thing like EJAG doesn't have teeth and you want to give it teeth. That's what I'm reading in this. And so I'm very adamant here about some of the language in this. And I think that it should be either reviewed in more detail or allowed to circulate to everybody and get everybody's independent opinion on this. It'll be allowed to circulate before this gets voted on. That's my say.
Thank you for your opinion, Keith. I would just say that this is the second time that it's been circulated. There was an open invitation for people who wanted to actually roll up their sleeves and dig on the language of this. So I think that that has been done. Whomever people or members chose not to do it for lack of time or other reasons, I respect that, but that opportunity was given to everybody. And now we're bringing this for further discussion. That's why we're soliciting feedback, and we will decide if we're ready to take a vote or if we need to keep on working on this. But thank you for your comments. Ned.
Can you hear me okay? Okay. So thank you very much for the work that was done. I guess I was one of those derelicts because I didn't see this at the last meeting, and I guess I had to get it just now. Apparently it was sent yesterday. But it does show very significant work, and I appreciate that. I do want to provide a little context. When the original goals and missions were disclosed, there was no mention of any goal related to improvement in health. And I think we all agreed, yes, we could just simply state as one of the primary goals. I would say instead of objective number 11, objective number 1 is to work to improve health outcomes in the San Joaquin Valley. So that might be one gentle suggestion. It should be our most fundamental purpose is to improve the health in the San Joaquin Valley from the problems of air pollution. Number 2, there's a lot of, I think we need to think about the goal. We just state the goal, and it can be that one line perhaps with a little more emphasis on the goal is to improve health, whatever we do in EJAG. And then the other goals are how to maybe do that in an equitable way. The second thing, the action items, I think are just general examples of what may be done, but I'm not sure they're marching orders. That's something you can think about. You may not do all of those things, you may do some of them. The one or two things I hope people recognize here is we really want to think about mortality, morbidity. When you talk about health metrics, I assume that's included in there, and things like years, lives lost. It doesn't seem like we look at that those health metrics very well, and maybe you cover that in what I would call paragraph number 6, relevant health metrics. And I'm very glad about number 7. Number 7, the biomonitoring in the AB 617. But one thing that is missing is the cost benefit analysis. So, for example, we have at the Citizens Advisory Committee report that it's going to cost $2 million per metric ton in one program to reduce NOx. $2 million. You can certainly reduce a metric ton of NOx for a lot less than $2 million. So I would say when you get down to the action items, at least you think about cost benefit. If you're interested in reducing emissions, reducing exposure, improving health, you want to do that in the most cost effective way. And you need to distinguish between reducing a metric ton of NOx that costs $2.5 million versus $100 or $500. So I really applaud the work. I do think the goal objective, instead of being number 11, should be number 1. It should be much more positive. Health is is our business. And then, you know, the other, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, think about mortality, morbidity, years, lives lost, and cost benefits. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ned. We're gonna move on to Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you very much. Ned, I agree with a lot of what you said. One of the issues I have is that we, as a valley, have to protect the environment, NOx, carbon, because we have polluters such as trucks. Here's a thought which I would like to promote. I have been promoting it in COG and some of the other areas that I work in, that we eliminate visitors to the national and state parks. And bear with me for a moment. Oh, no, you're laughing and you think it's funny. Okay, you have a Ford F-350 hauling a 13,000 pound trailer, and it's polluting, and it's coming from out of area populace. We have 23 million people visiting Yosemite. 63% of them are outside of California. They fly in, oh my God, flying in is polluting. And then they rent a truck or a RV and they move, they go to Yosemite and a lot of our other parks. We are responsible by SB 375 to reduce the carbon, the pollutants that are in our area, but we can't control anything outside. Is that right? Is that something that we should just accept? I don't think so. And they drive down 108 in Riverbank. 108 has a lot of Hispanics, very rich Hispanics, but we call them, the individuals who are disadvantaged because of the color of their skin. And it's right along 108. We can't control that, but if we move it outside, yes, we can control it. So we have to be very careful on how we want to control pollution, either do it completely or selectively. And selectively is those who are living within the communities. I have 57% of my community is Hispanic. And I think that they are, according to the recent census, are well above the county medium for income and education. So how do we deal with that? EJAG should account for the problem, not the color of skin.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate your comments. Any specifics? Frankly, I don't think that I perceive any specific recommendations or comments about the objective itself. I hear your sentiment about visitors and to the parks and other ways of pollution in our valley, But any specific recommendations or reactions to the document that we're discussing?
Well, yeah, I was addressing what Ned said, I support, but I think it has to be mellowed to how we as a group move forward in classifying. The recommendation, Ned wants his health to go number one, but I think we have to overall look at how we transport and how we equate health to pollution. And Ned, I support a lot of what you say. Ned, I support a lot what you say, but it's sometimes hard to believe.
Thank you for that clarification. Keith, you have your hand up again?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just needed to ask a question of Morgan. Is that okay?
Please.
I just need Morgan to Morgan, can you clarify for us, does the reach, what is the geographical and social economic reach of our EJAG here for the Valley Air District? Do we like reach, Ukiah, or do we reach San Diego? How far is our influence and our reach in our?
No, the San Joaquin Valley Air District, the jurisdiction of the air district is from San Joaquin County in the north down to the valley portion of Kern County. So it's an 8-county district, special district. And so that's who the board that we have is made up of officials and appointees from those areas. And obviously EJAG is an advisory body that has members who are also residents of those areas as well.
Thank you. That's all I had, Mimi.
No problem. Derek? Derek, are you there?
I was muted still. Sorry about that. I just wanted to say that when it comes to regulating highway traffic and where people come from and go to, we're talking interstate law, we're talking federal jurisdiction. The state has no power over that, and neither do we. So that definitely is nothing that could go into into this document or anything that we would be recommending as the Environmental Justice Advisory Group.
Thank you for that clarification. So just to kind of I'm going to try to summarize what I have heard here. Oh, before that, I'll give the floor to Richard again.
One more time, yes, the federal transportation will disagree with you. They work with the state, and the state work with your COGS. And each of your COGS regulates how you distribute your transportation funds. So if you're thinking that everything is outside of our purview, I think you're wrong. The last speaker, I want to tell you that it is not. I just was in an interview with the Federal Highway Transportation and also Sacramento Caltrans yesterday, and we discussed how the federal, the state, and the local can regulate how transportation goes and how it affects EJAG and also other tremendously disadvantaged areas. So it's not just a pie in the sky. It is actual if you can affect your local leaders. Maybe not Air Board, but it is COGS more than anything else.
Thank you. Keith?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I would like, based on the conversation I've heard so far, I'd like to ask for the chair to request from staff a definition of by the district's legal advisors on not only jurisdiction but on scope and range of an objective like this. So I'd like to have the blessing to put it in other words, I'd like to have the blessing of the legal department to identify some of the issues that we've brought up tonight.
Well,
And to
that you
see
brought
if
up.
this, no, Mrs. Baines brought up some very serious issues that have legal connotation. Richard O'Brien just brought some up. Derek brought some up, and Ed brought some up. Ned brought some up. And I'd like to just pass this on to, I think it's good advice to just have a definition of the jurisdictional range and define the, get a definition of the scope and range of the reach of what our objectives can be. They may not necessarily be limiting, but they can be defined so that we have a better idea of what scopes we have to work within.
Thank you. Actually, I was just gonna mention that, try to summarize where we are. So far, I think that we have received an opinion, one by Keith, that he's completely opposed to this goal and or this objective and action items as presented. Derek is in favor. And then there's some suggestions for changes. So I don't think we're ready to call this for a vote. That's obvious. But I think that the game plan here was that we all discussed and see if we were okay and we could get behind this document with the understanding that it was not going to be like the final thing. Obviously, it has to go to the APCO and to the legal department and to whomever else has to ensure that this is within our purview. That was the game plan that was envisioned by the subgroup that was part of working on this document. And we did that in conversations with Morgan. But I'm hearing another suggestion that is completely different, which is to take a step back, pause, don't take a vote on this, and then get some clarification from the legal team within the air district. So I see two hands. And now I'll give the floor to Tom first because he has not spoken. Then I'll go to Richard and Derek.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I just want to clarify because, you know, maybe I heard it a little differently. It didn't seem, there was a lot of discussion about a lot of issues. I didn't really hear very many things that were suggestions on changing the document, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misunderstood some of the comments. I thought, as we said in the very beginning, that this is something that the board will always have ultimate authority over. They have to, you know, approve it. It was going to go through a legal and you know, process-oriented analysis where we would get feedback if something was outside of our purview or legally, you know, not bindable. So I already thought that that was going to happen. So it just seems like if that was the only suggestion, except for maybe something in there was specific to how the document should be changed, but it was kind of hard to follow and hear what those specific changes were. Maybe it was all a suggestion to change the document, but that's not how it sounded. So I was a little confused to hear that we couldn't still, or maybe we could just have some more, like the bullet points of what actually was suggested to change in the document. Because if it was just that, you know, the board and their legal team needs to see if it's okay, I think we can still vote on it and do that. But if I'm completely wrong, then that's fine. We can move on because I think we spent a long time on this issue.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, I don't want to cut the discussion. I think, you know, in the past meeting, hardly anybody had read this document. Now we're in a point where we are like, yes, the discussion has evolved about so many things, but they have been very, it has been hard to track specific recommendations for changes other than the specific one that Dr. Baines made. So I'll give another pass to the three hands that are up right now, and then we'll try to come to a conclusion and see how we want all to move on. So let's start with Richard, Derek, and then Keith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank all the committee. First off, this is a very long process. And this is I believe our third discussion on the objectives. And I believe that we should, and I'm gonna, I don't know if it was recommended, Keith, to adopt it, but if you did not, I will make a motion to adopt it. There are flaws, but they're flaws that we can correct over the course of the next 2 or 3 years. I have an opinion that the Constitution has flaws, and that's why we have amendments. So let's go forward and not continue to retreat. If Keith, you made the recommendation to approve, I second. If not, I will suggest that we go ahead and I move to accept the objectives.
Well, since you're addressing me, Richard, I want to make absolutely sure you understand. I did not make a motion to approve a vote tonight. And I'm gonna, when I get my turn to talk, I'm gonna be able to share some specifics for Mr. Helm so he understands where I'm coming from.
Okay, then I made a mistake on who spoke before me.
No worries, Richard. I hear your motion, and I just want to, before we actually move on to specific motions and take a vote or not on this, I would like to give the opportunity to those that still want to express their opinions to say what they think about this. And I see that Dennis Brazil raised his hand. Again, I just want to give opportunity to those that have not spoken earlier to get the priority. So I'll start with him, and then we'll go to Derek, Keith, and Ned. Go ahead, Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to let you know, I just joined the meeting. For some reason, I could not get in, and I was showing that my meeting or the invitation I had showed 6:30. So my apologies, but I'm just joining in, so I'm not even up to speed on what the conversation is. Just want to let you know I was here. Thank you.
No, thank you. So we have had a very substantive discussion about the goal on public health. There was, as you know, you were part of that subcommittee. So
Yes.
We're hearing the different opinions so far in terms of summarizing. Keith has opposed it firmly. He would like to first go and get an opinion from the legal team of the Air District to see if this is within our purview. Other members have made some suggestions, and so that's where we are. And but Richard had already made a motion to approve it with the understanding that it's not going to be perfect, that we can improve it. But I just want to make sure that everybody has one more chance to express their opinions before we close this item. But thank you, Dennis, for joining. And don't worry,
Thank
you
you,
were not the
thank you,
only
Madam
one.
Chair.
Everybody had some issues connecting tonight. Derek.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. So I hate to become a negative Nelly here, but I'd have to say that if there was any possibility that this document could be changed and at any time in the future, Richard's suggestion that we would add into our document the closing of parks and mountain properties and things like that, I would vote against this thing right now and do everything in my power to make sure it never happens. And I'm just going to be clear on that right this minute. So if this was to be voted on and passed tonight, it would have to be with the understanding that there'd be nothing like that would ever be put into this document or be promoted by. I grew up as a kid going to the mountains, and my grandkids and my kids. And when we start talking about closing off the mountains and not letting people from other states or parts of the state come up and enjoy the beauty that we have here, because we're trying to cut an extra ton of something here or a ton of something there. You got economic costs. You have forget the economic costs. It's that beauty up there is for everybody. And I'm all in favor of what Ned's talking about, is looking at things from a health standpoint, but you don't shut the mountains down. You don't tell people they can't come. That sounds like Red China to me. I would fight that tooth and nail. And I am too old to have to go out and form a pack and put together my own outside organization to start looking to get people, out of office for pushing that kind of stuff. I don't want to have to go there. I want to just
Okay.
keep focused on the things that we're focused on, getting these semi trucks replaced that are owned by the people that they didn't get their money, yada, yada, yada. I can support this if it's going to stay the way it is. But if we're going to take this and go back and say, okay, now we're going to start slipping stuff into it.
Well,
Madam Chairman, I want some assurance that
yeah.
we're going to
Okay.
stay on this health-based stuff. We're not going to get into that other kind of stuff.
Well, thank you for that opinion. First, I just want all of us to take a deep breath and a step back. We are really getting ahead of ourselves. We are not going to put any language into that. We're just mixing opinions, personal feelings with something that we have, a very concrete document that we have in front of us. So let's just be clear. We do this exercise every year. So are we going to have a perfect chance at this document? Very likely not. And next year, we're going to change our minds and add things, but there are going to be things that are added within our purview. I don't think that adding any language about closing the parks and all that, it's not going to happen, because they will come back and tell us you cannot do that. So I'm going to try to rein us back to where we're discussing, which is a public health objective for our document. And I think that the discussions that we could, or the changes that we could entertain could be as, oh, do we move it to number 1 or do we keep it at number 11? I frankly don't care. Do we, do some changes like adding some of the specifics of the health metrics, like maybe put in parentheses, mortality, morbidity, things like that. I think those are recommendations that are relevant to the discussion and that we can do. As far as all the other things, I'm just being, giving you the latitude to express yourself. But let's just be clear that when it comes down to this document, we'll have to remain within what we can do. And in that regards, I agree with Keith. However, I can tell you that we're going to be revisiting this document, not only these goals, but all the other goals that are part of our objectives and goals. Every year we do it. So we don't have to get it perfect now. And that doesn't mean that in a year, we're going to come and add all the other things that we have expressed opinions about tonight. So that's where I think we are. And I just want to encourage ourselves, because it's 6:40. Whomever wants to talk, the 3 hands that are up, please try to keep your comments in a constructive and respectful manner. Leave your personal opinions, have one-on-one conversation among yourselves for things that are not related on the specific concrete recommendations on this document. So Keith?
Why don't you let Ned go? And I'll
No.
wait for after Ned.
No problem. Ned?
Thank you very much, Keith. What I'd like to do is second Mr. O'Brien's motion, but offer an amendment that we renumber the goal and objective. Instead of being number 11, make it number 1. I think it's very important to have the health as number 1. And hopefully Mr. O'Brien will accept that amendment in my second. And I'll just make the observation too, this contains a lot of what ifs and wherefores, and it's like, I think we should think about mortality and morbidity and cost benefit, but I think it probably can be encompassed with the fundamental statement that the subcommittee came up with. So I will second Mr. O'Brien's motion with the amendment that we make this really our first goal and renumber the others. Thank you.
Thank you, Ned. So do you want to go next, Keith, before I take Richard and Dr. Baines?
You know what? I'll wait. That way, I've said a lot already. I'll wait.
Okay. So Richard, then Dr. Baines.
Yes, thank you, Ned. Thank you, Chair. I agree. Oh, we got a cat out. Sorry, we have a cat in the house. Sorry. Let me go back. Yes, thank you, Ned. I agree that health is always number 1, no matter what. I just wanted to also explain that SB 375 dictates how I have to do my transportation management within a city. For example, I have to minimize my vehicle miles traveled because I have other outside resources. If I have to restrict my citizens, my residents, why can I not protect my residents from those outside influences? I have no objection to the people going to Yosemite or some of the other areas. I just want to make sure that I don't have to pay with my residents their pollution and the health hazards that you have. But I do accept, and so we have a first and a second. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you all for my indulgence.
Thank you, Richard. So we have a motion that it has been second. So Morgan, help me here. Can I take a vote now, or do I have to hear all the? Well, I'll just make for.
No, ma'am, Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
go
you
ahead
asked-
and take a vote without listening to people.
No.
That'll
no.
get you elected next time.
No, what you have to
Are
do.
you still sore
is
that you
to-
are not the chair, Keith? Because that's what
I am not sure. No, that's not about this at all.
Just
You're-
shut up and let
You're
me run the
allowing,
meeting.
hey, listen, you're allowing a man who just used the term rich Hispanics. You telling me that's not a racist statement?
Can you?
You know what?
please-
You need to be the chair. If you're not going to be the chair, then you need to leave the meeting.
And you need to shut up, Keith, because you are in completely
You're going to, oh yeah,
disrespect.
you're out of order by telling me to shut up, chair.
Yes, and you too, because you started.
Well, you better be
disrespecting.
careful. You better be careful
Are you
telling
threatening
me to shut up.
Are
Don't
you
tell me to
threatening
shut
me?
up. Don't tell me to shut up. That's a threat, telling me to shut up. What
You
are you
are
going to do if I
threatening me
don't
too.
shut up?
Have your people block them.
Yeah, through the chair, can we please bring some decorum back to the meeting?
Yeah.
Yes,
You got a
I
racist statement.
apologize, everyone, for this incident. I will go ahead and call Mr. Baines, and I see that we were joined also, but there was another hand that I just lost. Oh, Mrs. Dean is also in attendance, so I saw that you had your hand up for a minute. So I'll ask you if you want to make any comments after Dr. Baines, and then we're going to call it for a vote.
Oh, was it for me? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm so sorry that just happened, Madam Chair. I am myself a little upset with some comments that were made accusatory towards me. So I just want to make it very clear that if people don't know how to have respect on this meeting, then people need to really check themselves. Have respect for the process. Do not start accusing people. And from what was just said, one of the very first comments after I spoke was a comment saying to kick me off of the board because of conflict of interest. I have been added to this board. I have no conflict of interest unless you want to start making up some. And lastly, it's Dr. Baines. It's not Miss Baines. Have some respect.
I offer you my apologies, Dr. Baines, and my apologies to everyone for losing my control. This is not normally me, but I'm a human being as well. And you know, when I'm attacked, I should have just shut up and don't respond. But I will give the floor one last time to Mr. Keith, and then we're going to call for a vote.
Okay, Tom Helm asked if we had specific things that we were going to take out. I think you should go. I don't know what Ned was talking about. All I see on my proposal here is goal/objective 11. Now, Ned made a reference to number 1. Are you talking about that number 1 is establish an ad hoc committee seeking input from other stakeholders interested in the topic of help to help guide this work? Is that number 1? That item number 1?
Maybe I can just respond. I think we're just sort of voting on, let's make sure our first goal is health. These are examples of what might be involved in fulfilling that goal. I hope we don't have to get involved in the weeds of this. And so, for example, I said metrics, we should understand that to include certain things. But I think we all agree that health is the most fundamental thing, and this vote is simply, let's make health number one. Very simple statement here. I think we can all agree on the various implementations. Maybe we have differences of opinion, but for tonight, I think fundamentally we want to say health is number one. That was really the motion by Richard O'Brien that I seconded. I hope everyone will support that, and then we can look at some of the other issues later.
Oh,
And just in terms of what I was talking about, I numbered for my own purposes the various action items. These are hypothetical action items, 1 through 7. And for example, I said, yeah, I really like the idea that we're going to look at AB 617 and health. I think it's a very good potential action item. Whether we do it may depend. It's just a good example, but it is really the goal. The goal should be health number one. And Keith, I hope you'll support that.
Well, I just wanted to get clarity on that from you, Ed. Make sure that you seconded a motion for a document that you didn't see, that you were oblivious to, that it did not state what you just stated. You said you seconded it on the basis of health first, and this document does not support that. So I just wanted to make sure I was clear on that. I just wanted
I
to be
think it
clear
does,
on that.
Keith, and I hope we can all vote for it. So
I
thank you
don't
very
see it. I don't see where it says health in number one, Ed.
Okay,
Ned?
thank you, Keith.
No, I'm not through yet. I'm not through yet. I want to tell Mr. Helm the items I would remove. Number 3 completely, box number 3 completely, box number 4 completely. And yeah, it's all redundant. Box number 5 completely. It's all redundant. Anyway, that's my opinion. And I'm sorry, Mrs. Baines, who wants to be directed as Dr. Baines, is offended by some of the comments on this committee, but she took an awful bunch of our time tonight to open this discussion. And I think that her language and her discussion led us down this road. So I wanted to make sure we're clear on that.
I think that the least that we can all to everybody is respect. So if someone's preference is to be addressed by Mr., by Doctor, I ask that all of us abide by that request as the minimum that we can do. Courtesy, respect, we all can do that. I'm asking for that. So I will take a vote. The motion is to adopt the document with the amendment that instead of being objective or goal number 11, it will be objective goal number 1, meaning that the order of that we have approved in the past will move to second, third, and subsequently those changes. So can we do a roll call for this motion that has been made by Richard and second by Ned, please?
Okay, Ms. Martinez,
I want to
Yes.
object to the roll call. I'm going to object to the roll call and the vote. Want to make sure I'm on record objecting.
Dr. Baines,
I am going to oppose any acceptance of this at this time. I think we need to address a few things before we make any vote on something like this.
Mr. Freitas, Mr. Freitas, are you there?
I'm sorry, I was muted. No, I don't agree with it. I'm going to object to it.
Ms. Gutierrez,
I agree with it. Thumbs up.
Thank you.
Mr. Brazil,
Aye.
Ms. Fielma, looks like she stepped out. Mr. Helm,
I vote yes.
Mr. Williams,
With some reservations, I vote yes.
You got to be kidding me.
Ms. Dean,
Yes.
Mr. Leba,
Yes.
and Mr. O'Brien.
Yes, and I'm disappointed, Keith, in the way you conduct yourself.
Through the chair, motion passes.
You know, Richard, you're a
Thank you.
racist.
Thank
That was a
you.
racist mark
Can
you
I
made.
call the meeting
You are
to
a straight up
order?
racist.
I'm sorry. Can I call the meeting to order? I think we have made a lot of mistakes tonight, and I really ask all of us to come back and be respectful. If we disagree with others' opinions, our personal opinions, please keep that to yourself. Let's keep this meeting respectful.
I'll
Yeah, I
do
think
whatever
I
it
have-
takes to get Richard O'Brien removed from this committee, from this group.
That there will be a point where you can recommend items that's not to be entertained right now, Mr. Freitas. We're going to continue with the next agenda item, which is new incentive programs in Chapter and Stockton, AB 617 communities.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Todd DeYoung, Grants Program Director. I will give you just a brief overview of this item. Recently, our governing board took action to implement several new incentive programs within the AB 617 communities of Shafter and Stockton. And I'm not going to really go through this background. You all know what AB 617 is. We have the 4 communities here in the Valley. Those communities under AB 617 get clean air resources that are available to those communities. The Shafter SERP includes multiple focus areas, including road and sidewalk improvements and transit vehicle replacements. The Stockton SERP, of their many measures, also includes car share programs. And just a super brief background on the funding process. Again, this is not new news to you all, but with the AB 617 program comes dedicated funding. That funding has to be utilized in the, it has to follow what are known as the CAP guidelines, the Community Air Protection Program guidelines. Those are essentially, they generally follow the Carl Moyer program. Projects and measures that are not pre-approved in those CAP guidelines have to go through a different process. They have to go to CARB for approval, and then once they're approved, they have to go to our district governing board for approval before they're implemented within the communities. And so again, like I said, at our governing board meeting last week, our governing board approved 3 specific project plans or programs. 1 in Stockton and 2 in Shafter. The first one in Stockton was a car share program. The amount that was identified in the board and CARB approved SERP was up to $1 million for this program. This slide just basically shows some background on the need for car share programs, the role that mobile sources play in emissions, and why reducing emissions for mobile sources is a good thing. So the car share program in Stockton was really born out of a partnership opportunity that the Community Steering Committee in Stockton identified. They identified the opportunity to leverage an existing grant that the San Joaquin County Housing Authority got for $2.3 million. It was called a Jobs Plus grant from the housing, from the federal HUD program. This grant is focused on helping residents get and keep jobs, but as part of that, they tried to identify the barriers that were preventing folks from getting and keeping jobs. And transportation rose to the top of that. It was identified as one of the most significant barriers. There were surveys that were done with all the community members, and literally van pooling and car sharing rose to the top consistently as some of the biggest barriers to residents getting and keeping jobs within the community. Unfortunately, the HUD grant did not include any funding for the actual implementation of a car share program. It's a $1.6 million program. They were able to secure about $544,000 from another state incentive program for EV chargers. That left $1 million of funding shortfall that the community identified and wanted to fund. So this measure will fund they'll fully implement the car share program that was included in the HUD grant. It includes vehicle acquisition costs, charger installation, marketing and outreach, and then discount codes for the AB 617 community residents so that they can use the car share service at a reduced rate. Prior to executing an agreement, obviously the project proponent would have to submit a detailed project plan to the district and then negotiate those contract terms. The first project in Shafter was a road and sidewalk and bike lane improvement program. Again, funding in the approved SERP was $3.775 million. Again, this slide just sort of outlines the reasons that reducing emissions from road dust and from vehicle emissions is something that was a very, very high priority to the steering committee. So throughout this process, through the SERP development process in Shafter, the Community Steering Committee worked very closely with the district, the city of Shafter, and Kern County to identify and prioritize 2 specific projects that will significantly reduce emissions of windblown dust and activity-related dust. Overall, the project benefits for these projects were calculating using established state and federal methodologies for establishing emission reductions from these types of projects. So the first one of those projects, the road projects, will construct a new paved shoulder and bike lane, curb and gutter along the west side of State Route 43 in the city of Shafter. The total funding for this project is $1 million, and then the lead agency for this project would be the city of Shafter. The second of the 2 projects under this measure is a Mexican colony paving project. Kern County will be constructing sidewalks, curbs, and gutters throughout the Mexican colony area. You can see on the picture there all of the identified roads that will be paved, and then curbs and gutters and sidewalks will be installed in this area. And this area is just south of the city of Shafter itself, so it falls in the area of Kern County. So that's why Kern County will be the primary lead agency for this particular project. And so throughout this process, we work closely again with the city and Kern County to identify these projects and work closely with the Community Steering Committee. They were prioritized for their ability to reduce emissions and impact on expanding safe options for alternate modes of transportation. We'll enter into funding agreements at the appropriate time with both the city of Shafter and Kern County. While we don't require match funding for these projects, we are going to continue to look for ways to leverage these funds to expand the reach of these dollars within the program. So the final project is a transit vehicle replacement program, also within the city of Shafter. This measure will actually be proposing to replace 2 dial-a-ride vans. These are gasoline-powered vans with either 0 emission or plug-in hybrid versions. There's $400,000 that was allocated to this project in the SERP. It would cover up to 100% of the cost of replacing those old, higher polluting vans. The city is currently researching options for what makes the most sense and what fits in to their needs, whether that be full electric vans or plug-in hybrid electric vans. And obviously, depending on the option that is chosen, all of that $400,000 may or may not be used in the program. So again, all of these were approved by our governing board last week. And so the next step would be to launch these within the different communities. CARB is still working on the final approval of what's called our project plans that we've submitted for these projects. We anticipate the full final approval within the next coming weeks, and then we'll immediately launch those programs within those communities. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you for that presentation. Any questions or comments for Todd? I don't see any hands raised. So will you be presenting the next agenda items? I see that there's another AB 617 update, but there's also some report on wildfire prevention.
Yeah, I think we have Madison Perkins, who's a senior in our air quality analysis group, as well as Jamie Holt will be presenting on the wildfire item.
use this. Hi, thank you so much. So today we're going to be telling you guys a little bit about our wildfire prevention and our response efforts. So just a little bit of background information. We all know that there's a significant amount of emissions from wildfires here in California, and those totals can well exceed the mobile and industrial source emissions in the valley, which can lead to excessively high PM and ozone concentrations, as well as easily overwhelming all of the potential control measures here in California. In recent years, we've seen very intense wildfire seasons, excessively intense year after year. And some of the reasons for those are the decade-long suppression policies, which can cause for excessive fuel buildup, alongside widespread drought, which can cause for tree mortality to increase, as well as for changing climate conditions, such as the higher temperatures and drier conditions we've been seeing. The district continues to support local, state, and federal fuel reduction efforts to help reduce the frequency and severity of wildfires, as well as conducting extensive public outreach concerning wildfire health dangers and educating the public on the potential health protective actions. So what we can see here is that 2021 was the second highest wildfire season on record. This chart shows the number of acres burned per year, and we can see that 2021 was over 2.5 million acres. The only year in California history that even came close to those numbers was the previous year of 2020, which was a record-breaking year with over 4 million acres burned. We could also see that of the top 20 largest California wildfires, 4 of them were burned during 2021, and multiple others were burned during 2020. Last year, there was over 8,800 fires burned throughout the state, one of which was the Dixie Fire, which was the largest non-complex fire, also known as a single ignition fire in all of California state history, with nearly 1 million acres burned. Here we can see a satellite image of what California looks like when we are inundated with wildfire smoke. This satellite was taken on October 4th, 2021. There was multiple wildfires burning during this period, and it's just one instance of what our state can look like during these mass wildfire instances. Another way to represent what large wildfires can do is by looking at the impacts of our PM2.5 concentrations. This chart shows August 1st through October 12th of 2021. We could clearly see that on days when wildfires are not burning, the district stays well below that federal 24-hour PM2.5 standard of 35. However, the large peaks and jumps in days, those can all be directly correlated and tracked back to wildfires that were burning during that period. And so it's important that we continue to record and track those wildfires and the correlating PM2.5 concentrations. One of the things that we had mentioned previously that can cause for additional wildfires in California is how drought conditions are worsening in California. Currently, all regions of California are experiencing some matter of drought conditions. However, here in the Valley, all of our counties are categorized as either extreme or exceptional drought. This, along with forest fuel buildup and high summer temperatures, can point towards the potential severity of our current 2022 wildfire season. So our wildfire season this year started particularly early due to some of those conditions that we had previously talked about. As we can see from the satellite image of May 24th of this year, there was already 2 wildfires burning during this season. The River Fire near us in Colusa County, as well as the Edward Fire in Glenn County, both of which produced a significant enough amount of smoke that it was very clearly seen on a satellite. In more recent wildfire activity, the CAL FIRE map that's provided here was taken yesterday. That shows all of the wildfires that are currently burning in California.
To date, we have about 5,600 fires have burned so far this year, with nearly 200,000 acres. Of those 200,000 acres that have burned so far, the majority of them have been between these 6 listed wildfires. As mentioned, the wildfire season this year started a little bit early, with the Lost Lake fire starting at the end of May. And then the most recent large wildfire was the Six Rivers Lightning Complex, which began at the beginning of this month and is currently still burning up in Northern California. So the district continues to work closely with land management agencies on a daily basis in order to provide the best technical support that we can, and in order to enhance wildfire response coordination and continue to educate the public through public outreach. Some of the ways that we do this is by continuing to host our annual cooperators meeting, in which we can speak to the burners, make sure they have the most up-to-date information. We've also attended 4 interagency collaboration meetings. The district also continues to assist in the deployment of multiple temporary PM25 monitors to impacted counties and communities. And the district also works with land management partners in order to support enhanced forest management efforts to address some of the extreme fuel buildup. And at this point, I'll hand it over to Jamie, who will tell you a little bit more about how we are doing our public outreach and communication.
When we do have these large wildfire events where the smoke comes into the valley and begins to kind of fumigate the valley floor, providing accurate and timely health protective information is our #1 priority. We partner with public health officers and directors. We're actively engaged in the San Joaquin Valley Public Health Consortium, and we make sure that we're meeting with them on a regular basis to ensure that we have a uniform message and that folks aren't getting confused when we are having these extreme events. We have daily communication in English and Spanish with the information that we put out with regard to the air quality forecast and current air quality data. We also have extensive media relationships up and down the valley. We do press releases, we issue air quality alerts, and we do face-to-face interviews and press conferences when we are having these extreme events. We also have a good relationship with Valley Schools to ensure that they understand the information and are given accurate guidance on steps they should take to protect students when we are having one of these extreme events. And then, of course, we communicate directly with the public through phone calls, email, events throughout the valley to discuss air quality, give them information. We have all sorts of outreach pieces. And we also have a new email listserv that's been up and running for about 6 months, where folks can sign up to get this information so that they can be informed about when we are having these extreme events. Social media continues to be probably the easiest and best used resource for us to get information out. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Nextdoor, and we're just beginning to have discussions about TikTok, although I joke that I'm too old. I'll have to let one of my younger staff people be able to handle our TikTok account, but it's where people get information, and it's a way that we can make sure when we are having these extreme events that they're getting up-to-date, accurate information. And when we're in one of these periods where the smoke is hitting the valley floor, we're updating on a regular basis. That includes evenings and weekends. There are a lot of tools out there for the public to get their air quality information. And while we offer many of them, we just want the public to use what they feel most comfortable with and what they can understand the best. Those first 2 slides, starting from the left, those are our Valley Air app. If you go to your app store, whether it's on Android or iPhone, and search Valley Air, you'll get our app. It'll give you information, what the air quality level's at. And then if you click on that, you'll also get the trends, what the air quality's done over the course of the day. You can sign up for alerts so that you can get a little notification on your phone saying air quality is improving or deteriorating. That middle one is the Air Now app from EPA. And I will tell you, it also has the ability to send you little notifications and to get information. It is pulling information from our monitoring network. The next one you see there is the EPA's fire and smoke map, and it is a website that you can pull up on your phone. It probably is one of the most comprehensive pieces or tools out there for smoke impacts. And the reason for that is that they're going to include information from certain purple air monitors that have been vetted as being very accurate. They'll also include information from those temporary monitors that Madison mentioned that we put up in the mountain communities when we are having one of these events. Up next is just the purple air map. And then there's also SJ Air, which is another map that pulls from purple air monitors that actually some of our partners here in the San Joaquin Valley have put together. There's lots of tools out there. We encourage people to see which one's going to work best for them. You can go to our website, sign up for our RAN system. We'll also email you or text message you so that you can get the information in hopefully a method that makes it easy for you to understand and take action when you need to. This is our wildfire page, and at the very top of our wildfire page are the 2 links to real-time air quality data. It's our real-time air advisory network, and then the EPA's fire and smoke map. Again, that fire and smoke map, in my opinion, is the best one out there when we are having these extreme smoke events due to wildfires. We're watching a couple of wildfires right now. This was taken just a couple of days ago. There's a lot of information on this page. How to protect yourself, what are the impacts, how to set up a clean air room in your home, how to build an air purifier, kind of a DIY, inexpensive way to build an air purifier. Lots of tools and resources that are available on our wildfire homepage. This is just an example of some of our infographics. We're actually passing these out as magnets to folks, and we're looking at developing one in Punjabi as well. We've got English, Spanish, Hmong, and always open to feedback and comments about how we can get the message out. I like to remind people that while we have been fortunate that this year we haven't seen those heavy smoke impacts like we have maybe a few years ago, we're far from being at the end of wildfire season. You might recall the campfire that screamed through the town of Paradise a few years ago and just basically burned it up. That didn't happen until November, about the second week of November. So we've got a couple long months to get past wildfire season. We have 2 grant programs that I want to remind you all about. I think both have been mentioned here before. The first is our Clean Air Centers pilot program, and its goal is to work with our local communities to put resources and funding available for them to take advantage and buy these very large, they're about the size of a refrigerator, they're air purifiers. So they're industrial air purifiers that you could put at a school, at a community center, at a senior center, at a library, really at any publicly accessible building. Often we're finding that cooling centers that are already up and running for when it's 110 degrees outside are ideal locations for this. We will fund 100% of the cost of putting one of these big industrial air purifiers into one of those publicly accessible buildings, as long as whoever it is, be it the library, agrees to allow the public to come in and get a respite from the poor air quality when we do have those really extreme smoke events. The Clean Air Room pilot program, which you all heard about, I believe, at the last meeting, it's been launched. And I will tell you that if you're, maybe Thomas Helmy, you can help us out. We need some more folks in Stanislaus County to be aware of the program. You'll see that, and this is the program that basically puts sends you a free air purifier for you to set up a clean air room in your home. And you sign up and it gets put in the mail to you. It's really for those folks who are living in disadvantaged communities in the valley. And we have had a lot of folks take advantage of it. We're happy at the pace that it's going. I expected Kings County, they always kind of lag behind a little bit. So I don't know who our Kings County rep is, but if that person can help get the word out. And also in Stanislaus County, those are the 2 places that we actually might end up doing a little bit of paid social media advertising to get those numbers up just a little bit more. As you can see, everyone else, where there's a red number, they're on a wait list. And then we are out in the community, as a matter of fact, and I mean, you'll be happy to hear this. We will be out at schools at drop off and pick up in the next couple of weeks with little packets of information. And those packets of information include a variety of stuff, but primarily wildfire information. So we're slowly beginning to do kind of at the schools, face to face, talking to the parents, handing them information, make sure that they know how to get some of this this education so that they can be making decisions. And I think that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we
Not
have,
really.
okay, go ahead,
Oh, sorry.
Tom, and then I'll see, I see Dr. Baines and Dennis.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand. It was just going to be a quick response. Yeah, disappointed that the numbers are low in Stanislaus. We did just have a meeting on the 21st, and I'm forgetting the gentleman's name. He's from the Stanislaus office. He came and did a presentation on this, so I hope those numbers go up. After that, we had a good turnout of 20 or so people talk about air quality, and the gentleman that I know his name's on the sign up list, but I can't think of off the top of my head. But yeah, I definitely want to get more people filling out those applications. So thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Thank you, Tom. Dr. Baines?
I wanted to thank you guys for this excellent presentation. I have been seeing some of the work about the do-it-yourself air purifiers, and I was starting to share it because I loved it, because literally that highlights what we're going into. We're about to witness some of the worst air quality in history of California, and air filtration systems and the ways that we can purify our air and having safe, clean air areas are where we need to concentrate. And I'm wondering if there's any talk about specifically, I know they have like cooling zones for people during hot temperatures. Are there any talks for areas for rich air quality during bad air quality days?
Yeah, that first grant I spoke of, the Clean Air Center grant, that's to put the industrial size, refrigerator sized air purifiers into like a library or a school or a senior center that is often already a cooling center, so that the public, the unhoused, they can access it if they don't have a way or a home where they can maybe, run a DIY filter on their own.
That is exceptionally well done. That is what we need to focus our efforts on. The situation is so dire at this point that we definitely need to focus on getting the word out for those types of areas, so that when there are high air or bad air quality days, people know where to go to have access to good quality air. So thank you. And I look forward to working with you guys.
Thank you. Dennis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great presentation, guys. A lot of information in there. I love it. I was just curious, for forest management from the governing board meetings, do we know if the state and the federal government have stepped up their game in the last 3 years for forest management?
I can definitely say at the state level, they've definitely increased the pace and the scale of their efforts. There's been a lot of money that's been put into that, and they've been doing those efforts. At the federal level, I think they're still falling behind, but we continue. And the federal government is trying to do some things where they will contract with the state to take on some of those the federal lands as well. And so there's some partnerships that they're trying to form right now to try to again continue to increase the scale of the work that's going on. But yeah, still not where it needs to be.
Great, agree. I was really hoping that from the wildfires over the last few years that we were going to see at the state level them really step up their game in air support. I mean, it seems like that, we're looking for resources after the fact, right after the fire is completely out of control. It'd be nice to see them really focus in building up an army fleet of air support that can help put these fires that I think if we continue to have a dry California, I don't see no other way that they're going to battle this. But anyway, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for all the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. That was a great presentation. Okay, so we are gonna hear an AB 617 update.
Good evening, Chair, members of the group. Ryan Hayashi, one of the Deputy Air Pollution Control Officers here with the district, and I'm happy to give you a brief update on the AB 617 program. So great news. I know you've received updates in the past regarding the development of the Community Emission Reduction Program for the community of Arvin and Lamont. I'm happy to say that the district's governing board took action in June to approve that program. It was a great collaborative effort. That was the first steering committee that we used a co-lead design, included a environmental justice advocate who worked heavily in the community, as well as a resident from the community who helped work closely with us in making sure that the information was presented in a manner that all the community could understand and got more involvement. And so I think it was a really positive effort. We had a meeting last night where the community provided feedback to the California Air Resources Board, because the next step that we have is taking this to the California Air Resources Board for their approval, which will happen in October. And the feedback that we received last night was very supportive of the effort that was made by all parties involved. So there are 31 measures that are included as part of that, with $30.6 million in dedicated funding for the measures that were proposed by the community, with significant emission reductions as a result of the implementation of those measures. So very exciting, and happy to be working with that committee to move those things forward as quickly as possible. Some of the recent progress that we've had on the priority measures. So for all communities, the urban greening and vegetative barriers have been in various stages and working with subcommittees with the various steering committees. Happy to say that we have several RFPs out for those, hoping to get some responses and begin that work. We also had we've been discussing residential indoor air filtration measures for all the communities. This has definitely been something that was raised as an area for opportunity after being included in the Stockton Community Emission Reduction Program. And then, so there have been discussions in both South Central Fresno and the Shafter communities on how to include those measures in their community emission reductions as well. In Fresno, we had done a lot of work on the truck reroute study, a lot of collaboration through subcommittees with the steering committee members, as well as the members of the city of Fresno. We did design the contracts and groups to help run that truck study were interviewed and selected through that process. And so we have a kickoff meeting for that next week. In Shafter, we, as Todd talked about, we had the measures approved by our board last month, which is very exciting. It's definitely something that the community has been asking for, to see some of these projects happen. And it'll be a great benefit to the people living in those areas that are looking for more opportunities to have better walkability in the communities and alternatives to drive vehicles. And then the Stockton car share program, as Todd talked about, is also very exciting for the communities that's going to be benefiting. Ongoing progress with our community design air monitoring network. We had worked closely with the steering committees to identify locations and deploy equipment. All the data is available on the district's website, real-time data. And I'm really excited that we've already been able to deploy 3 air monitors in the Arvin and Lamont community, which is definitely the fastest that we've been able to get some of this up and running in any community. So definitely taking lessons learned and applying them to get this moving faster. So upcoming priorities for us, continuing to work with the steering committees on the incentive measures, one that we're looking at right now is what opportunities there are for burn cleaner program funding amounts. We discussed with several of the steering committees about some of the challenges with the existing programs and the funding amounts that were included in the SERPs, and have been taking feedback from them and considering ways to make changes to that program. Very excited. Jamie talked about the engagement that we're doing in the communities for schools and anti-idling, and some of the in-person outreach, in addition to the impacts of wildfire smoke. And we're also looking at ways in which to take some of this information that we've been collecting and gathering, and what research opportunities may be available to help us in evaluating the program, which we definitely have heard from members of the community steering committees, and as well as here, that is definitely one of the important areas that we're going to look at in the future. And with that, I'm done and happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ryan. That was fast and effective. You're getting thumbs up from all of us.
Thank you very much.
Well, I don't want to, cut anyone off. Any comments or questions for Ryan, sorry? Nope, only thumbs up for you, Ryan.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much, and have a great rest of your night.
Thanks. So I know we're approaching our time, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So just want to make sure that I open up this opportunity for any suggestions regarding future agenda items for our next meeting. If you cannot think of anything right now, please make sure to email the staff. Morgan, just a quick question. I know Michelle has been out. Who is the staff member who will be our point of contact for any questions that we might have, or recommendations for meeting agenda items?
Yeah, we're Michelle is still out currently. So we're transitioning to a new temporary staff person. Her name is Adriana Majovich. We'll be sending out an email to everybody. She becomes effective next Monday. So we were going to send out an email to all the committees with her contact information.
Okay, well, let's keep an eye for that email. And can we see if there's any public comments? We did not have anyone from the public when we started this meeting. Is there anyone?
Through the chair, we still do not have any members of the public present.
I think I'm kind of happy that nobody witnessed that mayhem. I will just close. I obviously feel free to chime in right now, but once again, I cannot express my sincere apologies again for my loss of temper. I can assure you that it's not going to happen again. As the chair, I should have established more control of the meeting, and I apologize for not doing that, and also for not controlling my temper. So sorry for all of us that have to witness those problems. And anyone wants to make any remarks before we adjourn our meeting? Dennis and Richard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to say that, all of us are on this committee for the same reason, to try to accomplish and achieve things, in the EJAG communities, and things happen sometimes and it gets the best of us, and it's just how it is. But I think Mr. Freitas was very unprofessional and attacked a lot of committee members tonight on this committee, and I'm not okay with that. So I would encourage you, Madam Chair, to speak to our legal counsel, and so we have a plan in place for in case this happens again. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
Briefly, I want to thank you for indulging me. I did not intend on being what was classified as racist. What I wanted to say that things shift as people get affluent. And we have to take into consideration that the entire community, whether there's one of color, of poverty, of riches, all have to be addressed when we do this EJAG as environmental throughout. Man-made problems, man has to solve them throughout the community. And if you thought that I was out of order, Madam Chair, I will offer my resignation. Thank you.
What can I say? I think that, several of us, including myself, we're probably out of order. So if we're going to start with resignations, I probably have to raise my hand first, followed by several of us. So I think definitely I will reach out to Morgan and other members of the staff to see how we can bring us back to order and fulfill our meetings in a most productive and respectful way. I'm newer to this role, and probably my inexperience in this role also put us in this position, but definitely there has to be some check and balances of all of us to remind ourselves what are our duties as members of this committee, following the minimum rules of being cordial and respectful, and also following the Brown Act rules. So I would talk to staff and see how we can all be, perhaps that could be one of the agenda items. Maybe we take a refresher, maybe we get a presentation from staff or the legal counsel so that we are all on the same page and make sure that our behavior is in the best way possible. Derek?
So as we're getting ready to close, and one of the things you asked for were items for possible future meetings and so forth. I think we're still kind of in that time frame. And I'm just thinking that as I ponder over this evening, and we have some new people in here, I think we're probably due once again to have staff do a presentation with us on the actual charter, if you will, or the establishment documents of the EJAG, what it was made for, why it was created, what it's supposed to do. We have that. It's pretty comprehensive, and maybe it's just time for a review. That way everybody kind of knows where we came from and where we are going and where we are able to go. And we could probably save a lot of discussion on things that we would never be able to do. And we'd be able to just take care of business and stay on task and on track. So that would be my suggestion, is that we schedule a review one evening for 20 minutes. I hate to say it, but probably 20 minutes it'll take, or maybe even a half an hour to go through it. But we probably should do that once every couple of years anyway, because of turnover in the seats.
I agree with that recommendation. And I see Esperanza SP you have your hand up.
We also will have to have our Brown Act deal one of these days. I know we're way behind on doing that.
Yep, absolutely. I have taken note on that.
Thank you.
SP? We cannot hear you. Are you speaking? Okay, can you try again? I'm sorry, we cannot hear you. Because it's already 6 minutes after the hour, I'll just ask Morgan, do we need someone to present at the board meeting, or we need a volunteer?
For CAC, usually Derek or Thomas are there. So if the CAC wants an update, I'm sure they would be usually are willing to do so. As far as the board, there may be a report either September or October. I'm not sure exactly yet, but I mean, I can just work with you on that offline.
Okay, let's do that. And if there's nothing further, we're gonna adjourn our meeting, being 7:37. Thank you all for your patience, and I look forward to seeing you in October. Good night.